awesome. As a colleague and friend of Jonathan's, I can't tell you how much this means to me. I'm Carolina Miranda. I'm a staff writer at the LA Times and fortunate enough to have gotten to know Mr. Gold in life. So today, under this appropriately golden LA sky, we are going to pay tribute to Jonathan, to mourn him, but also to celebrate him, and to send our collective best wishes to the entire Ochoa Gold family, who for so many years have been willing to share him with our city. Jonathan may no longer be with us, but his spirit lives on in everyone in this park, in the sound of NWA on a car stereo, in the sizzle of carne asada on a grill late at night, in the heat of blazing Thai curries that leave you tearful and sweaty. In a generation of Los Angeles writers he has quietly mentored over the years. They say Los Angeles doesn't have a center. They are wrong. Tonight, the center is here. So tonight we will have some tributes by those who knew him personally and professionally. There will be some music courtesy of composer Carl Stone. There are going to be some exclusive clips of film from documentaria Laura Gabbert, the director of City of Gold. Very excited about that. But before we get started, I wanted to give a few thank yous and shout outs. So first to Grand Park and the Music Center for being such gracious hosts. We are here because of their generosity, so thank you. To KCRW and their amazing volunteers and DJ Anthony Valadez, please give it up for him, who has been gifting us with music all evening. Thank you. To the entire team at JJLA who helped us produce this event, we couldn't have done it without you. Thank you to the LA Times. We are Jonathan's work family, and they have the team, the events team has assembled an incredible lineup of Angelinos tonight. And to the friends and family who agreed to appear on this stage tonight, we are so grateful you could be with us. And lastly, to Councilman Jose Huizar, who helped make this all possible with the city, because you can't just take over city land at last minute. Thank you so much. The councilman is here to offer his greetings, so please welcome Jose Huizar to the stage.
Well, first off, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for coming together to celebrate a real gift to the city of Los Angeles. And a huge thank you as well to Los Angeles Times, the Office of Mayor Garcetti, and to the family of Jonathan Gold for helping and being part of this as well. Someone like Jonathan Gold is rare to come. And we were so lucky here in the city of Los Angeles to be able to read his words that inspired us to do much more. He wrote about places that some of us would probably never visit. Sometimes we drive by them. Sometimes we think they were part of Los Angeles. But what he did through his writings is to remind us all that everyone in Los Angeles is relevant, no matter where you come from and who you are and what type of food you enjoy. When you think about who and what is writing about food in Los Angeles, sometimes you get an image of some elite place that is too expensive for you to enjoy. But for Jonathan, he knew that whether it was a lady selling burritos in the sidewalk of Boyle Heights, or a southern restaurant in South Los Angeles, or some great place that did open and was hard to get into, whatever it was, he wrote about those places, took us in there, and kind of made us imagine like we were sitting down there ourselves, eating and sharing that good food. But for all of us in the city of Los Angeles, we are grateful that he brought us together. We celebrate ourselves as one of the most diverse cities in the city of Los Angeles. And he reminded us that although we say that often, let's go and experience it. And what better way to do it than with food? He loved Grand Central Market, and we just completed a beautiful plaque dedication ceremony. We also dedicated 2 light poles with a replica of his site profile, and we will soon build the sidewalk of gold with gold sparkles to acknowledge and remember Jonathan Gold. So on behalf of the City of Los Angeles, thank you for coming out. Thank you for acknowledging one of the greatest people that ever walked these streets in the City of Los Angeles. And thank you all for reminding ourselves of who we are as Angelinos, people from all over the world, people who acknowledge and respect one another's cultures, and that's something that Jonathan Gould would want us to do. Thank you, and please, if you want to get a memorial poster that we have, they're there at that tent there, and these are being given out to recognize and acknowledge today's beautiful event. Have a beautiful day, all of you Angelinos. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So, for 20 years, you knew it was Saturday in Los Angeles because Jonathan was talking food with Evan Kleiman on KCRW program, Good Food. Evan is a chef and a radio host. She's been described as the fairy godmother of the LA food scene, and she really needs no introduction. Let's hear it for Evan Kleiman.
Thank you so much to all of you for coming out here today. And excuse me if I start to falter a little bit. When Jonathan started visiting Good Food 20 years ago to record his interviews, I was so intimidated. I felt that I wasn't worthy to chime in with my opinions. So mostly I just listened, and I would egg him on to the next thought. This went on for years. When I did rarely venture an opinion, he would bristle ever so slightly, like an actor who felt that their lines were being stepped on, at which point I would always pull back. But I would try again, and eventually he was ready to hear what I had to say. Occasionally, he even paused to say, interesting, or exactly, or I didn't think of that. Wow, you have no idea how thrilling it was to feel Mr. Gould's validation when in the presence of such a mind, such a voracious intellect, there's a lot of pressure to hold up your end. But really, what delighted him the most were the small asides that would crack him up. And in the end, it's the small, most human things that remain. The way he threw himself into cooking for his family and friends, the way he would never ever respond to an email that I would send requesting him to participate in a panel, but he would text me back right away if I had a specific question about a restaurant or an ingredient. The way he encouraged so many of you to write or to cook or to try new things, it's just that in the case of our Mr. Gould, these very small things added up to something quite monumental. Jonathan ate for himself and his own need to know and connect and taste and dissect and learn. And he ate for us, to teach us to taste and connect. I am deeply, deeply sad that I will no longer be able to share him with you on Saturday mornings. I know from the outpouring of kind notes that you feel that too. So many of you commented on how we interacted like siblings, how you could hear the affection that we had for each other, even while we bantered for the umpteenth time about noodles. That makes me happy to know that the work we did all these years drew you into our relationship and made you feel a part of ours. There's no greater gift than that. So I'm sending all of you hugs of comfort, and thank you for sending me all of yours. I've come to understand that my bond with Jonathan grew from the fact that both of us use food to make sense of this insane, crazy world, and I will continue to do that for you. We have a couple of Good Food clips for you to listen to. The first is not from one of his famous reviews. It's just one of many. And then we'll also hear a clip about how Jonathan courted his wife, Lori. Audio, please.
Signature roast pork entree, they call it, which is a small plate of roast sucking pig, super crisp, served with a little dish of sugar to dip it in, if you think hoisin is too vulgar. There's a beautiful dish of squash stir-fried with celery and cashews. There's a nice eggplant and clay pot. This is a gigantic menu, but it also feels sort of like the JV menu. And then the varsity menu can cost as much money as you happen to have in your bank account, probably. But lobster and crab are often on special. So you can get, a 2.5 pound crab cooked beautifully with scallions and ginger. I mean, just slightly undercooked so that you can sort of suck all the meat out of the pieces without, having to resort to hammers and tongs for, $25, $26 if the special's still going on. The lobsters were somewhere around 10.
That's pretty good.
It is pretty good. There was one point when this came at dim sum where there was a beautiful congee on the menu and it looked irresistible with gooey duck, those giant long neck clams that I ordered. And the waiter stopped for a second and looked at me and said, we do that with the whole gooey duck. And I said, yeah, that's fine. He said, no, the gooey duck is $40 a pound. I realized I was looking at a $180
Bowl of
bowl
congee.
porridge. I settled for the lobster, which was on sale for $10.50, and I don't know if I like lobster better than gooey duck, but I don't like gooey duck 10 times more than I like lobster.
Jonathan Gold, LA Weekly food writer and Pulitzer Prize winner, loves pie too. In fact, he used pie to woo his wife.
I did. We went on our first date, and 27 years ago, long time. We got back to the apartment. It was about to be sort of like the awkward peck on the cheek, and I mentioned that I had some fresh peach pie.
What a line.
It was good pie. It was my mom's. My mom was a very, very good pie baker. She came upstairs, and 27 years later, we're still together. So that must have been really good pie.
What a wonderful story.
Thank you, Evan Kleiman. I think we should all have some peach pie. You may know him as a contestant on Top Chef Masters or as the man behind the Office Burger at Father's Office in Culver City. I've had more than a few myself. Or perhaps you've dined at Luxon, his innovative award-winning restaurant. Jonathan once described him as the sort of chef who tinkers on his fermented XO sauce the way your cousin Gabe works on his old Corvette. Please welcome Chef Sang Yoon.
Good evening. Who's Jonathan Gold? My mom used to ask me. In recent years, when I would take my mother to Parks Barbecue in Koreatown, she would quietly remark, "Why so many white people here?" And I'd point to the picture of Jonathan's review on the wall, and she'd say, "Oh, Mr. Gold, no Korean food too? He Jewish? Why he always wear hat?" My dear mother also passed earlier this year, also from cancer. So I'm sure her and Jonathan are currently, while Jonathan's explaining the superior quality of meat served at Parks, and my mom's probably saying, "Yeah, but it should be $7 cheaper." And yes, Mom, he Jewish, and he likes Korean food. It's no secret that Jonathan was a shy, introverted man, and on top of that, chefs and restaurant critics weren't really supposed to hang out or acknowledge each other back in the day. So for years, we played that game where I pretend not to recognize him and he ignores me if he sees me. Just very awkward interactions. But I'll never forget the first time he came to review Luxon. It was a Wednesday in September of 2011, a 9:45 reservation under George Green. As soon as his feet crossed our threshold, our entire staff went into full sphincter clinch mode. Nobody breathed for 2 hours. He said nothing, I said nothing. He ate, and he left without incident. It took at least 10 years of this kind of cat and mouse game to finally have a meaningful conversation with him. But from then on, every chance meeting, every food event, every pie contest we judged together turned into very long discussions. We discussed everything from the bullshit foie gras ban to why finger limes cost so much. He once asked me what I thought of foraging. I told him I love foraging, as long as it was at 99 Ranch Market. But to answer the question, who was Jonathan Gold in a meaningful way, we have to think far beyond his job title. Jonathan was a pioneer, a leader, and a crusader for our city. He nobly and humbly lived among us. He was a true Angelino. He dined in every neighborhood, and he represented all of us equally. Jonathan understood the strength of our city was because of, and not in spite of, our diverse, strong immigrant communities. Jonathan showed us that a city without prejudice is a delicious place to be. He gave equal importance and paid equal respect to the white tablecloths in Beverly Hills and the food vendors hustling the streets of Boyle Heights. He showed us that without both, LA just wasn't LA. But how important was he to us? Ask yourselves these questions. Have you ever driven to a taco truck not parked in your neighborhood at night, sober? Waited in long lines to spend $6? Have you ever been in traffic for like an hour heading to San Gabriel Valley to eat a spicy frog hot pot you heard of, and it was described as face-meltingly hot? Jonathan stamped our passports and inspired us to explore our city, discover, and above all, trust. For we Angelinos, that's how Jonathan made each of our worlds just a little bit bigger and our giant city just a little bit smaller. He so famously said we should be less afraid of our neighbors. I think he was absolutely right. Jonathan, it was truly an honor to cook for you and your family many, many times over the years. I'm deeply humbled to have been the subject of your most kind words. And it gives me tremendous pride knowing you were the one who discovered me 19 years ago. You left us entirely too soon, but you left us much, much better than you found us. We are all so grateful to have had you. And we're so proud to say you belong to us, and we belong to you. And because of that, Los Angeles will always be the city of gold. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy and well served by life. These are restaurants that Jonathan covered as a critic, but where he was also a regular customer. So please welcome Christine Moore.
What an honor it is to be here today to speak about Jonathan, someone I greatly admired, respected, and someone that I got to feed a lot. Jonathan was our critic, but more than anything, he was our champion. He understood and respected what it took to cook, create, write a menu, serve, have it all work, and still taste delicious. He lifted us up. He asked us to explore every magical corner of our beloved city through food. He taught us about food from all over the world right here in our own backyards. And he made us great by asking us to do our very best work. He made us equal by bringing us all together. And he made us proud by putting a light on us. I learned a long time ago, having coffee with Jonathan, a triple shot cappuccino, to really pay attention and listen hard. Jonathan's knowledge and experience was vast. I would often leave a conversation with him thinking, wow, how lucky I am. He astounded me. We once had an ongoing, nearly year-long conversation about roasted chicken. I would serve him and Isabel chocolate croissants every day, every morning at Europane, Sumi's beautiful bakery in Pasadena. Jonathan appreciated the art of the croissant and the commitment to making fresh pastry every morning, and he supported it. I never imagined while I sat across from him entranced in one of his stories with cappuccino foam on his mustache and salsa on his shirt that his voice would ever be silenced. I cherish every moment I had with him. He was really my hero. I must say it didn't start out that way. I first learned of Jonathan when he wrote about a dessert I had made long ago at a restaurant called Les Deux Cafés in Hollywood. He was writing for the Weekly, and my chef showed me his piece, and needless to say, he was not fond of my dessert selection that night, and he sure did write about it. We had many laughs about that for 25 years, and one of the last times I saw him, he brought it up, and he asked me, "What were you thinking?" And I said, "Jonathan, I was young." Every year at the KCRW pie contest, we debated, fruit or cream? Is it a pie? Is it a tart? Jonathan liked to champion the underdog, the pie that took some risks. He admired that ability to do one's own thing, and he liked to find the hidden treasure amongst the nearly 500 pies. I would watch him talk to his fellow judges, experienced and seasoned Los Angeles chefs and restaurateurs. There was always such a great respect and admiration going back and forth between Jonathan and his chef fans. I felt that he was their biggest fan too. Jonathan wanted us all to make it. He wanted all of us to do our best work, to keep the bar high, be a master, be passionate, keep learning, keep sharing. He wanted all of us to live our dream and support our families, and he wanted to lift us up, and he did, for he was our champion. I think about all the chefs in the city who have been waiting for a nod from Jonathan. The validation, the praise, the criticism, the acknowledgement. Well, we all know his standard. We've all read his work, and we will all be able to read his work forever. We know his heroes through his writing and his speaking. So we take that knowledge that he gave to all of us and we carry on, and we do our great work. We will be proud and we will honor you, Jonathan, with our work. We are so proud to have had such a brilliant genius represent us with his incredible writing, support, and voice. Jonathan, your beautiful city thanks you. We will always love you and all that you have done for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine. Our next guest is a composer. His instruments have included microprocessors and melting ice. He was not only a close friend of Jonathan's, he was a regular dining partner. Please welcome composer Carl Stone.
Thank you very much. I'll just use this. My vector for Jonathan was through music, not so much for food, although when we first met in 1985, he was writing an article about the new music scene in Los Angeles, and that's when he looked me up. He invited me over to his apartment in Koreatown. I didn't see any live chickens there, contrary to the stories that I had heard later, but he was so shy. He could barely make eye contact at that time. But he knew about my peculiar penchant for naming my compositions after my favorite restaurants. And we sort of compared lists, my composition titles and his favorites, and it was pretty much the same list. And in fact, later on, a few years later, when Jonathan was at the LA Times, he actually did a feature for the Sunday Times where we rode around the city for about a week, eating at all the restaurants that I had named my pieces after. He liked my music, and I'm really happy about that. Of course, I'm happy when anyone likes my music, but when I came to realize just how deep his knowledge about music was and how excellent his taste was, I felt not just happy but really honored that he liked my music. He wrote the program notes for when I performed at the Getty Center a few years ago, and he wrote the liner notes for when my album came out. I will always appreciate his great support for my music and his support as an eating partner. He sometimes, when I live in Tokyo now, but when I lived in Los Angeles, he would sometimes kindly give me a ride to the airport, and we would stop off at places like Al Watan, the great Pakistani place, or Al Noor. And I mention Al Noor because I'd like to play for you a composition with that title. Before I play it, I just want to think back about the last time that I saw Jonathan. It was in Tokyo. He came there to visit with his wife Lori and his son Leon, and we dined on eel and eel spines. And I think Jonathan especially enjoyed that. About the piece, Al Noor, it uses the voice of a singer from Vietnam, a female singer, as a kind of conduit. Her voice is infused. It's not mixed or mashed up with other music, but it's actually, through a technical process, it's infused with the melody and the rhythm of other musics. And I did this piece a couple years ago, but subconsciously I think I had Jonathan in mind because the music that I chose, obscure French Baroque music, Italian opera, rock music from the 70s, was all music that he loved. And by taking this Vietnamese singer and putting her standing upright side by side with Italian opera and with Western classical music or Western pop, I think it embodies Jonathan's philosophy, where a great faux shop in Gardena or Garden Grove and a pupuseria of excellent quality and a fantastic barbecue place down in Compton stand side by side of equal value in his mind with the fantastic food that you would find at a Providence or at a Vespertine or even a Noma. So with your indulgence, I'd like to play for you now my piece, Al Noor. It's about 5 minutes long in this version.
Gió đưa bụi chuối sao anh theo vợ bé anh theo vợ bé bỏ bé con con thơ tai âm tai bông tai nhắc mẹ chồng tai nhắc mẹ chồng mà đầu nỗi thùng mong mẹ chồng, con thơ tai âm tai bồng, tai nhân ai dân mẹ chồng mà đầu đôi thùng bông. Tai âm tai bồng, tai nhân tai nhân mẹ chồng mà đầu đôi thùng bông.
Thank you very much.